Let me see. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes of 9/16/21.
Yeah, so for these, we just had those minor edits and I did a little wordsmithing of that one paragraph that Jeff asked. So I just kind of reworded it a little bit so it made a bit more sense than the other edits we did live in the meeting. I can open them up if you guys like to see the change.
I took a look. Good.
You did? Okay, yeah, they're on the Dropbox.
Anybody have any questions? No? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of 9/16/21?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Abstain, I was on vacation.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
Abstain, not there.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes. Yes. Pasamato.
Yes.
And the 10-7 ones aren't ready yet, so we'll do those at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll get into our first public hearing. It's a request for determination of applicability and stormwater management permit, 163 Parkerville Road, map 19, lot 8, construction of a new single-family home and associated infrastructure. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold 2 public hearings on Thursday, October 28, 2021 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Eric Philbrook for approval of a stormwater management permit and request for determination of applicability for a project located at 163 Parkerville Road, map 19, lot 8. The project description is for construction of a new single-family home. These hearings will be held concurrently.
So I do not see Peter Bemis in the attendees. If there's someone else that's here on his behalf, if you could use the raise hand feature. Otherwise, maybe we could use this time, Mark, to introduce Joe, if Matt would be interested. Because our next
Sure.
one is until 7:10.
Yeah, we
and I
can't
don't
do the
see
next one until
anyone
7:10.
else. Yep.
Sure. This is Matt. As you probably have heard, I am stepping away from Lucas Environmental to focus on my alpaca farming endeavors. So Joe Orzel is going to be taking over for Lucas for performing reviews and attending meetings going forward. And Joe is with us tonight. Joe has some experience in town. He's done some work actually with the planning board on doing some of the I think CR inspections. Joe, I don't know if you want to give the elevator speech of who you are.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, nice to be here. As Matt mentioned, I'm a wetland scientist with Lucas Environmental, PWS, CWS. I've been doing wetlands work for about 25, 26 years. I do have some experience in Southborough. As Matt had mentioned, past few years I've been presenting the open space monitoring reports to the planning board. So I am somewhat familiar with the locations in town, and I've seen quite a few of the wetlands in town as of this point. Do have a lot of experience in doing monitoring of various projects. Looking forward to taking over for Matt.
Great, thank you.
Nice to meet
Anybody
you,
have any
Joe.
questions for Joe?
No.
Melissa, you were going to say something?
Oh, I see Peter in the audience. So if we can always come back to this at the end if we're okay to move on to 163 Parkerville.
Okay, well, welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Matt, sorry to see you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a difficult decision, but something I've been working forward to for a few years. And who knows, I may turn up here or there. You never know.
You never know. Don't burn
Congratulations
bridges
on the change.
because
Is that a threat? Yeah.
It's a good threat, but I think we're all happy to see Joe come on board. And I'm very excited and thankful to both Matt and all his work that he's done for us and the help that we've had, and looking forward to kind of continuing that on with Joe. So thank you, and look forward to it. All right. So I will
get back to our
bring-
regularly scheduled program.
Yes. All right. So Peter should be loading in a second.
Good evening. Sorry, a little bit of traffic, but thank you. And Matt, if you retired, then I'm disappointed that I didn't do it before you. And if you didn't, then I'll find out what you're doing when I catch up with you. Do you need to read something in, Mr. Chairman, or do I start?
I already did. You can
All right,
start.
thank you. I am so sorry. Okay, 163 Parkerville Road. The commission had visited this back in 2016. We filed a request for determination of applicability. There is a wetland on the opposite side of the street. And on our site, we needed a stormwater permit. At that time, we got our approvals from you and from the Board of Health, and then we did not successfully get approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is an awkward lot in that it was divided as a smaller lot when it was created, and it needed permission from the zoning board to be able to be developed. The owner did go back to zoning board. Zoning board did grant them relief the second time around, and now we have to go back and revisit our permits with you and with Board of Health. The Board of Health plan pretty much was the same as before, except that Presby has a different approval. So we have a slight different number of units than we would have had previously. And Board of Health said okay to the plan. And now we need to come back to you folks for the stormwater management plan and I would hope a negative determination, because that's what you gave me last time. 25,000 square foot lot. We've got 10% impervious area. And I think here, what else did we have? 400 cubic yards of fill required for the site. There was a SWEP plan, and there were an operation and maintenance plan provided. And we did drainage calculations. Again, 2016 versus 2021. We are experiencing global warming, and there's probably 25% larger stormwater collection system than there was in 2016. That's life. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if I was just to share my screen on the plan, I can do that if you'll give me a minute. Otherwise, Melissa, please bail me out to show everybody. Thank you. Great, thank you. So you had seen this before with the previous plan. We did have an extensive planting plan with this, recognizing that, you know, the type of site we have. It's a challenging lot, and he had already cut it back in 2015. I think is what may have even prompted having to get a permit back when Beth Rosenblum was on the commission as your administrator. But we did add more collection systems for the site, but pretty much everything else is what you had seen the last time. Again, happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your help.
So, Ben? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I
So,
actually.
hey, 1 second. I need to hand the reins over to you because I just realized that I'm in a butter because I got a butter's notice in this.
That's right.
Oh, of course.
So, sorry, I just realized, oh, I'm in a butter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So
out.
we're good with you with Mark having read the notice. I don't think we have to, anything has to be redone here. Do we have any questions or comments from any commissioners regarding the plan of the presentation?
I have a couple of minor questions, Ben, if you don't mind.
please.
And it has to do with the, because it's fairly, from what I can see on the drawing, it's a fairly steep slope on this. On the erosion controls, there's both silt fence and water, which is great. But to ensure that things don't get past it, are either one of those going to be trenched in any way? Because that would really, I don't see it on the drawing.
Yes, it would be. And actually, if it said wattle, I have no problem. It's compost log. Walter
Okay.
probably carried that over. We will use a 12-inch compost log at this site. It is steep. So I have no problem with that condition being included, please.
Okay, all right. And then the other question was on the construction entrance. Is there, because that very easily could get clogged up with the steepness. Is there anything on the drawings? It's hard to tell online here. Is there anything on the thing that says that has to be refreshed if it gets clogged up?
No, but I have, again, no problem with that being a condition, and that will be an ongoing checklist item. So when I report to Melissa after storms, if it's not adequate, we'll replace it. No problem.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
This is a challenging site, and I know you walk by it every day. So I will make sure it's in good condition.
And just and as a point to the commission, that is something that I ask for during inspections if it is full of sediment.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
as an FYI.
Yeah, but always actually said it on the drawing. It gives you more
Yeah.
leverage. Good. Okay, thank you. Or in the condition, it gives you more leverage. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put in the condition, but if you don't mind, I'll do an amended plan based upon the conversation tonight, because we really should have had this as a compost log for sure. I would never use wattles on this site. And then I will add that note to our construction entrance apron.
Okay, thanks.
Better to reinforce it. Yeah, no problem.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the commission who wishes to speak on this? Okay, is there anybody in the audience who is here to ask a question or make a comment on this plan this evening? If so, please use the raise hand function on Zoom and Melissa will promote you up.
I do not see any hands.
Okay. Yeah, I recall the plan from back in 2016. I recall the discussion that the wetlands are on the other side of the road, and in fact, it has a decent crown. There's really, I didn't have any concern about anything actually reaching the wetland because of that. If there are no further comments, I think we're looking for a motion to close. Well, we'll do them one at a time to close the hearing on the wait a second. The RDA, do we close the hearing first before making the determination? We do.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have? Is there a motion to close the hearing for the request for determination?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second?
Melissa, if you would.
Watson,
Sorry, yes, agreed.
Smith,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes.
Yes.
Okay. And next up, looking for a motion to close the hearing for the stormwater management permit. Someone care to do the honors?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Melissa?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Dyer, Carl, Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory too. Is Carl there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, it's
Wittes?
Carl. Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. We
Um,
can do the issuance at the
Melissa,
end.
do you have draft conditions?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We'll put
Are we
those-
all set with the plan?
Yeah, the two conditions that we're talking about, using the compost logs, trenched compost logs, and I just drew a blank on the other one.
Refresh it.
Construction entrance.
Read the construction entrance. Thank you. Unless somebody feels strongly otherwise, I feel like those are easily addressable through a condition, simply through conditions. But if anyone would like to see a revised plan before we vote to issue a determination or the stormwater management permit, say the word.
Hey, Ben, I don't think we closed the meeting, so we can't
Yeah.
accept the new, we can't, wait a minute. I don't think we can we accept another plan now that we've closed the meeting?
If you add it as a condition, just for an updated with the requested conditions.
The conditions are fine, yeah, but I just revising the plan. I mean, that would be a new submission, right? After we close the hearing.
Good point, Carl. Yeah, so that's a good point. Peter has offered to make the revision to the plan, and I think that would be great. We can simply add that as a third condition. I think that will address all concerns, and we can handle it at the end of the meeting.
Okay, right, fine.
Sound like a plan?
Yep.
Okay. So I think, that's it for 163 Parkerville for now.
Great. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, I walk back in the meeting, stroll into the room. Okay, next up is Ken's Foods. It's a continued notice of intent and continued stormwater management permit, 325 Turnpike Road, Ken's Foods, map 26, lot 2 and 6. It's construction of a 62,500 square foot warehouse addition. In accordance with the provisions of the Southfield Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaws, Southfield Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw, the Southfield Conservation Commission will hold 2 public hearings on Thursday, October 28, 2021 at 7:10 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting on the petition of Ken's Foods, Inc. for approval of a stormwater management permit and notice of intent for the construction of a 62,500 square foot addition to the existing warehouse at 325 Turnpike Road, map 26, lot 2 and 6. These hearings are being held concurrently. Okay. Now there's Mr. Doty.
Yes, hi.
Hi. So I have a question for you, Mr. Doty.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that the commission has been waiting on is information around your open permits currently.
Yes,
So that
sir.
we can close those out and identify the open items against those permits and apply them to this application. So that this application in front of us is complete.
Yes.
So as of
I
right
have a-
now, I don't view that we have a complete application moving forward until we take that step.
I've put together a summary of that and uploaded it to a shared folder with Melissa today. We worked on that today with the attorney and I. I would like to summarize it for you if I could, if you'd like that this evening.
Yeah, I really like to see some progress in that vein moving forward, so that we can
Yes.
clean up the clutter and move
Yeah.
forward with a complete
Yeah.
view of what we're doing.
Yeah. I have the document on my screen. It's in large text. I could scroll through it, but use it as a crib sheet, so to speak, as I'm discussing it, if I may. Oh yeah, I do have a shared screen. Thank you. Share this. Which screen is it? That's screen 1. All right. I trust you can see the screen.
Yep.
Yeah, we have 3. Chris Lucas, and he probably is correct. I'm not certain about the oldest one, but there are 3 orders that are out and 1 stormwater management permit. The earliest order is associated with the sound barrier construction that occurred several years ago, back when there was originally a much larger addition planned. I need to check in with Stacy or someone else at Bills and Thomas. I believe they were handling that at the time. And to see, because I couldn't find if a certificate had been in fact issued on that. I don't know if any of the commission members remember if it had. I do know that an as-built was put together for it. And we should be, I would presume, able to do a request for a certificate immediately on that. I wasn't even aware that was still open until Chris had brought it to attention in one of his in his comments. A large project, of course, that the order is still out on is the warehouse renovation, and there are items on it primarily have to do with revegetation, some restoration, some replication work and plantings that are most outstanding, besides a PLS survey of half of the property. There's been a PLS survey done for the eastern half and the southern half of the property associated with this project that are now the base plan for the new revised plans that have been submitted today. So what needs to be done primarily and Matt, I'm glad you're still still with us right now, because I believe this was a issue that discovered you and Melissa discovered one day during construction a few years ago, that there was some siltation that had happened in the area near where we have our control structure and head wall. There was some dewatering escape that happened there, and I know there was an immediate response to it, and I know that Carlco was the site contractor, did some immediate work to clean the siltation out. So that's one aspect. We've had that inspected both by our staff and Goddard staff. We can't see any remnants. We believe at the time that it was cleaned up quite thoroughly, and it doesn't appear to be any indication of any alteration that remains in that area, where sediments were cleaned out, I think, rather quickly. We're suggesting that to close that particular aspect out, that that perhaps someone from Lucas, Mark, or perhaps Joe now, Melissa, our representative at Goddard, that's Mark Arnold, you're probably familiar with him. He's in the audience right now in case there are questions. And Aaron Alpert from our office, our wetland, right, meet out there to assess and see if that particular area, if everyone agrees that it either does or doesn't need any further assessment and action, or perhaps as an alternative action that someone might suggest in response. But the area looks very good. It's thriving as a wetland, and doesn't seem to be problematic. The second item is the replication plantings that were done on the north side of the building. This was done in an area that was identified as potentially having been filled at some point in not the recent past, but a while back. And the plantings that went into that area have not been successful. It's our opinion and Goddard's opinion that it's likely because the soil needed to be reestablished and cultivated a bit to be more amenable to the growth of wetland vegetation. It's certainly wet enough there, but it seems to be rather compacted and still has too much of perhaps a gravelly nature to it. And this is an area that's immediately, that some of the drainage channels that run along the sides of the driveway run around the edge of it. And so we've agreed that it needs to be redone properly. It does have the wet conditions. And then there's some planting that hasn't been successful around the bioretention area that collects the stormwater from the parking lot, the northeast parking lot. There's been some plant mortality there. We believe it's due to the greater amount of water in the lower elevation it has. There was some of you might remember, I know Melissa probably does, that there was a blown spot elevation or a survey reading there that was designed to And the area got excavated before anybody reported to us, hey, we seem to be going down deeper than we should. Well, it got filled back in, but perhaps not as much as it could have been. And as a result, there's water there, perennial. Throughout the year, there's water there. Some of the plants there are wet liking, but not necessarily wet loving. Some of those are suffering a little bit, but others like buttonbush and the cattail marsh and the other elements there that are doing some helpful things are doing quite well. So those are the three sort of work items, so to speak, besides finishing the as-built. The as-built, of course, giving us a better report on the actual hardscape drainage systems, exact invert elevations for most of that system that's particularly in the trucking area. We are quite satisfied with how that works and how the drainage systems work. We were all, I think, together with the commission a bit, stepped into some territory that was none of us had stepped into before, putting in an infiltration / detention area below grade in an area with very high groundwater. And it has worked out very well, that system. The truck dock has stayed high and dry. Of course, it's drained well enough because it has proprietary gas and oil separator systems for obvious reasons. In the truck dock area, you want to have that. And that all seems to be working very well. And so when we get the as-built of that, we're suggesting that perhaps we separate the planting items from the rest of the remaining, the grading work and the construction work, the hardscape, so to speak. And with the as-built and with the proper final inspection, request a certificate on that. Like I said, we have half of the survey done because we did it to revise the base plan under our plans. But now we've engaged the surveyor to finish the north and west side. And I'm waiting on a schedule on that, but I think it's just a matter of weeks before that's done. So we should be able to wrap up that aspect. So the consideration we're asking the commission to consider is maybe along the lines of what Matt had suggested a meeting or two ago, that some of these unfinished items that need, because we'll need 2 growing seasons, good growing seasons, I think, for those plant material issues to get resolved. Perhaps those aspects perhaps maybe roll in and become part of the new project, and get finished that way. I'll scroll down here a little bit here. The other order that's out there was the temporary access way that we needed to create for the construction of the new septic system up on the hill behind onto the north. That project went well. It's well established. The area of the swale, the drainage channel that we crossed, we had some quite big trucks going over that throughout that construction. And some of you may remember there was a directional drilling aspect of that project that went under the wetlands for force main that went up to the septic system at the top of the hill. The as-built survey was completed for the Board of Health, and particularly right in the area of the system. And I think at the same time, we schedule a visit if the commission thinks it's necessary to discuss the restoration area. I think we can take a look on the back side of the building at this, and I think it's pretty evident that is also returned quite well to its original pattern of a country drainage swale becoming wet, which still is a wetland, and is thriving quite well. And then request a closure on that. The question is whether the question on that is, what do we as-built? Crossing was temporary. The area is operating the way it is now. Should that require an as-built survey, that particular area? I don't know what value that would bring, but but we certainly are going to be, it's going to be part of the survey that we're doing anyway for the larger project. So I guess we could consider it covered that way. That being the topographic details of that area. So those are that's sort of the hit list of things that need to be done. The interface between these older projects and the new one also is an update for the O&M plan, which I'm starting to call an O-I&M plan, because we also need to satisfy the requirements of the planning board. They look for what they call as you may well know, a installation and maintenance plan, where normally with wetland projects and stormwater project, we're calling these operations. So now I'm calling it an operations inspection and maintenance plan. In this case, and it could work for both purposes. That's that topic, Mr. Chairman. I probably spent more time on it than everyone would like, but if we may ask the staff and Joe or Matt, I don't know how long Matt's going to be around, and congratulations, Matt. I was watching earlier. With your wish, we can schedule a date within the next few weeks to take a look at that restoration area, the area where the septic system access was, and to the extent that also down at the bioretention area, and all of these areas, and make sure we have an agreement on it. But if the commission would like, it'd be a good time perhaps to discuss whether or not it makes sense. Close out the hardscape, close out the grading, drainage issues, and carry on the planting issues with the new.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, whatever we can close out on these old, I don't want to say old, but yeah, they are old.
Yeah.
Old and open permits.
They're closed. They're expired. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
They are, but they don't officially get closed until you ask for a certificate of compliance, and it gets inspected, and we relieve the deed of it. And I started really thinking about this week when I heard the word nor'easter.
Yeah.
Which to me means this one was rain. We're going to get snow. This stuff is going to get covered. We're not going to be able to see it. And, I don't want your new application to be dragged on until April because we weren't able to close out these older permits. So I think that, it's prudent for us to get focused on these and identify, what's left open, what can you add to the new application to address those. And, we close out these older ones and we put those conditions on the new application, whatever they are. Or however many they are.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is our suggestion is that we close out all the hardscape drainage within the next 2 to 3 weeks with a survey. I don't know. I don't have a full schedule on when that survey is going to be done yet. But as soon as that survey is done, we'll do our final inspections. We already are satisfied with how it operates and how it works. We feel good about the hardscape and the grading and the drainage aspects of the project, but these other ones are definitely the items that need a longer term solution. So it really would be the planting related issues at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's what we suggest and recommend, realizing that these should have been done earlier. There's no.
Through the chair.
Yes, Matt.
Yeah, so I think what Scott described sounds reasonable, but I think really until the complete as-built is done, it's hard to determine, if there are other hardscape items as far as pipe elevations or inverts, things like that. If there are items like that potentially, were, as was discussed, there was a blown survey point in there. So until really the complete as-built is done, it's hard to say exactly what future work may need to be done. So I think having an as-built, with that somehow marked up to show, okay, all of this was done as it was designed and approved to be, and these are the areas that either with regard to vegetation that have failed and need to be replanted, or if there is, some sort of modification that needs to be done to bring it to the original design, that's shown on a plan that can then be reviewed either by Lucas or in the case of sort of engineering structures, more likely by Fuss and O'Neill. To have that peer reviewed as we would with any request for certificate of compliance, and at that point sort of come to agreement on, okay, these 5 items are outstanding items that need to be addressed, and because we don't have a valid permit in place, these 5 items need to be rolled into the new notice of intent and order of conditions, and then can move forward from there. I think that's what our recommendation will be.
If I might, Mr. Chair, Bill Pizzoni, I think what we're trying to do is we're all trying to accomplish the same thing here. It's just that we don't want to, delay certain review of our current application. We know that we have to update it. I think the list we put together today is we're looking for some guidance, I think, from you that this is accurate, this is what's out there, this is what needs to be addressed, so we can then add it to our current application and roll these other items into the current request. As far as the as-built is concerned, I think before the next meeting, we should have that done, and you'll have that, and Lucas will have it, and Fuss and O'Neill, and we'd request that Fuss and O'Neill be able to look at it as soon as we get it into them, so that it doesn't hold us up. I mean, we're under time constraints, as you know, with weather coming, and we'd like to get through this as quickly as possible, but we also want to close out a lot of these items. To be honest with you, I thought Beals and Thomas got that certificate of compliance on that sound wall back there years ago, and I was kind of shocked when I saw they hadn't, or at least it hasn't issued or been recorded. As for the other items, the plantings and that, I think those do need to roll forward. So I think we're going to be all be in agreement for that. And like you said, we really won't know truly on the hardscape mat until that as-built is finished. But I'd like to be able to work on them simultaneously, let's say.
Is the I just drew a blank. The as-built, thank you, jeez.
Yep. As-built
Is
plan,
that-
the topographic survey.
Yeah, is that currently in process, or is it yet to be assigned?
Yes, it is. We had Beals and Thomas had been one surveying firm. I think I get into a lot of history, but yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
What's the expected timeline for that?
Like we said, we expect that the firm that's doing it should be able to do it within a few weeks. We're waiting on confirmation of that. That's the indication we have. I will let the commission know through Melissa immediately as soon as I know for sure. But it's not going to extend out into. It's not going to extend out far at all to get that done.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is, Mr. Pizzoni, I just see no way that we could close out this application without having that in hand.
And I agree. I agree with that. I understand that as well. So the burden is on us to get it done as quickly as we can and get it to you. If we can get it to you timely, a week or so in advance of the next meeting, we can at least discuss it further at the next meeting and then be in a position to close it out maybe the meeting after.
Yeah, I was just trying to close the gap in my mind between the comments you said of maybe getting it a couple of weeks and what Mr. Dottie said was, a few weeks. That wasn't aligning for me.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
So, okay. Other comments from the commission members?
And
Mark,
sorry,
you can go, Judith.
with you, Mr. Chair, that it's very difficult to try and put all of this together in a kind of theoretical sense without that as-built plan. So, you know, my strong recommendation would be that we wait to see that as-built plan before we try and make too much progress on, you know, the current application. I totally understand that, you know, the constraints of weather and you want to get this started. But it's very difficult for us to actually try and get our heads around some of this until we actually see that as-built plan. So I would strongly recommend that, you know, you aim to get that before the next meeting.
Scott, has the as-built plan for the west and south side been provided
Yes,
to them?
yeah, that was done. Yeah, that was one of the things that we had worked out with Melissa and the town planner as being necessary. We were using the original topographic plan out there because we really hadn't changed it, except for the wildflower mounds that were on the east side of the building. So, but and the survey that came through did in fact indicate, you know, show where that was exactly. And there was, I think, any differences were rather de minimis between the survey, but still it was important to get that. I don't disagree with that at all. It was important to get that. There is one, Ms. Watson, I do respect your opinion on this, but there is one item that I think that really would like to discuss, if I could, with the commission tonight.
I think Ms. Wittes had a comment she wanted to make.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand where you guys are coming from and what you're trying to do, but I'm a big fan of not rewarding having open permits like this. It's very difficult for residents to come back just for certificate of compliance, and we push them back to go complete it. Whereas you have 3 open orders. You've shown that you haven't completed those open orders, and now you're coming back for a 4th, asking us to give you more and throw in the old stuff at the end of this new order. What's going to cause you guys to answer these or do the plantings at the end of this order? You might leave this one open. We have nothing to show that you're going to follow through with this other than a promise. I'd really rather see you complete some of those activities so that we can close them out. I understand having an as-built as a benchmark, and if some of them are going to be altered because the new project, you know, the wildflowers didn't mesh well, and so the new project is going to overcome the wildflowers, we can work with that. But if there's outstanding items on the old permits that you've had time to complete, I don't see issuing anything else until they're complete. It's just how I feel.
Thank you. Any other member comments? Nope. Okay. Judith?
One follow-up. Sorry, Mr. Chair. We only have 2 meetings before the end of the year because we don't meet at the end of December. So there's a middle of November and a beginning of December meeting. So my thought would be, if you can work back from getting this done by the end of the year, then that will give you kind of a good timeline to understand what it is that has to be done at each step, you know, within the context of our 2 meetings, because we can only have conversations about that on that November and December meeting.
We understand, and we're aware of the scheduling. Thank you. Scott, did you want to address that one other question that you had for them?
Yeah, I do. There's one item that was raised by, I also have some other good news, but this is one item that I think is what we should discuss, is the delineation of the 100-year flood elevation out at this site.
Well, you completed it. Great.
You know,
No, huh?
No, we're as you know, as you well know, that flood elevation out there has been I think people notice as they've driven by the site that there's not as much flooding on that site as there used to be, based on some of the things we did together out there. and it's between handling the beaver situation a bit, and also the mosquito cleaning up, and also that block culvert on the abutter's property. They were kind enough to allow us with your emergency order to do some work over there. But the 100-year flood elevation on this site is been mapped by FEMA as a zone A. It's not a zone AE. And its approximation has been based on historical flooding out there, based on a block culvert for many decades, which has been, and that approximates out at like an elevation 14 to 15, 314 to 315 out there at the site. And we're not doing any work anywhere near that elevation or that line. Actually, and when I say work, I mean filling of any kind. So we're asking that the commission kindly consider that that considering the fact that that is a but it's been lowering, and the fact that we're not doing any work near it, whether or not that's a necessary step along the way to calculate that, because it's a regional element going through our site. There's quite a watershed that comes through there. And quite a few properties have been impacted by that flooding that's happened there over, for decades. And what it is, if I may explain real briefly, is it's an old cow path that, some of you may remember the dairy farm that was out there. There was a cow path. Farmer put a culvert in there. The culvert eventually got blocked, and then for many decades, that extra 4 feet of water became the standard elevation out there. It's caused all kinds of problems made some things very difficult on this project, on this property. And I know for many of our neighbors too. There's not, that's a request that we're asking. We'll put it in writing in response to Lucas Environmental's comments. And I think it would something I want to drop on in writing. I would like to hear what the commission might have to say about that aspect of the project.
So I guess I'm confused as to why you have a reservation to have the chance to correct it, where there was beaver dams out there, blocked culvert, streams that were clogged up, if you will, and cleaned out by the mosquito, or to improve mosquito control and so forth. I would think that would be in your best interest to do this and not ask for a waiver. I'm just completely confused by it.
Well, the thing, what it is the amount of engineering effort it takes to do a regional flood study, where it's not just our site; it's associated with a flood, a floodway just below our site. There's a detailed study done. That's the reason. We're not concerned that the line is going to be we're going to be encroaching it. I don't think we'd even have a problem doing it if it didn't look like it might impact project schedule. And I know that's not your. I know that's not a main interest that you need to be concerned our schedule, but that's really one of the reasons.
And I to me, I just think that there's an opportunity here to fix a wrong and to readjust something, and you're going to benefit from it in the long run. And I don't know. My common sense button is getting pushed here over this one.
Well,
it seems like
it's definitely something
you ought to do it.
It's definitely something that should be updated, and I think it'd be a benefit to everyone. There's also still some more culvert work that could be done out there, because we were very ginger out there, and I think if we could educate a larger, broader, or maybe a more specific audience on what's going on out there, and we get it fixed, and then a true flood elevation get established, a historic one, it would benefit everyone. It's just that we think the elevation that it's going to be, the elevation that's at now, and the elevation it's going to be are not impacted by, we don't, it doesn't, we won't impact it at all because we're not approaching it vertically or horizontally. Historically, when those calculations get done, the line that's been shown as a zone A, it could be maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but this one's definitely would go to a lower elevation, I presume.
I mean, that would be, my, bystander assessment, but let me open up to other commission members for comments on this. Maybe I'm off base. I don't know.
Mark, this is Carl. Can
Yeah, Carl.
this is very hard to follow and conceptually. You may be more familiar with that. I think it would be helpful if we might be able to see what this is all about, because if we could,
I do have some
opportunity to go out there and actually see this, so we can actually contribute to this in a meaningful way, because at this point it's rather abstract to me. So what's going on?
Yes, I understand. I do have some illustrations that I would share, but again, I didn't want to take too much more of your time tonight, and have put together I believe to be a sensible explanation of this. But I also think it's that's why I sort of wanted to talk about it, because at the same time that we may address with staff and any members of the commission, of course, that would want to join us, we would seek and get permission from that abutter to access their property. You actually can see the problem actually from our driveway that goes to the emergency driveway that goes out to Deerfoot. But we'd love to be able to show this and explain this thoroughly to any members of the commission visiting, or any other staff members that may. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's your meeting.
No, that's fine. Ben, I think you want to say something?
Yeah, Mark, I tend to agree with you on this for a few reasons. I understand a bunch of work has been done with regards to the beavers and the culvert cleaning and so forth. But the fact is, beavers come and go, culverts do get plugged. My understanding is it's been a few years since I've been involved specifically in this floodplain work, but my recollection is when FEMA subcontracts out, a flood study to make a zone AE determination, they actually assume that culverts up to a certain size are plugged in making their determination. For exactly that reason, we have a neighborhood here that has historically and it seems increasingly so experienced a lot of flooding problems, and the protections that the act gives to floodplains is to help mitigate the complaints that we've been hearing. I would just be really hesitant to try to whistle past the graveyard in this one and just not address the fact that there's FEMA shows a floodplain there. That's typically the evidence that we use, in making our determinations as a commission. And FEMA does have a process for revising that. I understand it's not a quick, simple one, but a revision can be made through their process. But I tend to agree with you, Mark.
Anybody else?
Everything Ben said, and you as well. I agree with both of you.
Well, I think you're hearing some guidance.
Yes, sir. The particulars of the bordering land subject to flooding, which is really the aspect also that we're talking about, because that's what the 100 is that it's if there's an AE zone, as Mr. Smith points out, if there's an AE zone, that's your line. If there's an A zone, the next step is whether or not there's any conflict or anybody's got any reason to believe that no, and I'm hearing myself echo. If there's any reason to believe that the mapping of it as an A zone is indication that there's an indication that the flooding is actually higher than that, and we don't believe that we've experienced anything like that out here at the site. That's when you warrant the calculation. Bill, you wanted to say something, it sounds like. Oh, I thought I saw you, Bill, talking. I'm sorry. So, thank you.
I guess I see it as a condition, as a long-term type of term, take in a regional approach, going forward, and that gives us the forward and do it all. If so,
Mr. Chairman,
Bill,
this isn't
you're
working.
breaking up terrible.
Oh,
Bill.
I'm sorry.
That last, your
I'll
last
sit a little
phrase-
closer. I'm in a floodplain down here, so all the internet wires go underwater
You sound like you're underwater.
did sound that way.
regularly.
I think what you were,
That happens.
yeah. Were you suggesting, Bill, that, that perhaps getting this established as a condition, now, Mr. Smith, of course, characterizes as whistling past the graveyard. I can understand that position. But if we determine, maybe it's something that we do, it's a longer time frame element, and Ken's Foods agrees to do it because it is a big benefit to many in the community and in this neighborhood. Get that done as a condition of our project. And if there's any indication that if we've encroached on that elevation at all with any kind of encumbrance on the floodplain, that we immediately have to do some sort of remediation and a inch by inch. Basically what you do is if you're in the floodplain, as you well know, or an isolated land subject to flooding, a bordering land subject to flooding, you've got to incrementally, you need to make sure you've attained that volume that's still required. And because on other sites where you simply do 100-year storm elevation calculation, you get to define areas. But when this is potentially going to be the extension of a floodway, and so it's quite a different exercise.
Yeah, you've got some sort of echo going on there, Mr. Doty.
I'm very sorry.
I don't know.
I'm very sorry, yeah.
I think it's actually Bill's computer. It's picking up. And
Yeah, maybe Bill, you go on mute.
Yeah.
Is there
Carl?
any of that you'd like to hear a third time?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I think you heard some guidance from the commission with respect to that. In terms of a completion date for it, I mean, we can discuss that, whether that's something that we can make a condition for the application or what we need to do with respect to that. But in terms of requesting a waiver for it, I'm sensing from the commission that that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, I don't think we really want to looking to get a full waiver. I think we want that reestablished as much. And you were right on line, Mr. Chairman. It's not that we don't want to know what that is. I'm in my experience, I'm fairly certain that it's going to be it'd be different. Notwithstanding the fact that I personally have not done these calculations. I just know a bit about them.
Just driving by on Route 9 and stopping at that traffic light and looking to my right at Ken's Foods, my eyeball says it's going to be better for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
from what it has been in the past. It's
yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. I think we made our
there's nothing
point.
else.
Thank
I think
you
we're
for
going to
your
continue.
input. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
I said, if there's nothing else, we're going to continue to the hearing on November
18th.
18th.
Before we
Can
continue, do you want
Can
to
I
ask
take
the
another
public?
few minutes of your time to update you on two things real quickly?
Oh.
If I may, if you're inclined, I want to let you all know that, and especially Mr. Smith, that the level spreader modeling that we did through the HydroCat, it did actually reduce, and the porous pavement actually did reduce the volume of the runoff a bit. It's like, again, we're using the level spreader like it's never been used before, that in my experience. And the porous pavement also for the emergency drive is brought down very small amount. The peaks increase a little bit, but still less than existing conditions, the peak rates. But it brought the stormwater volume down. It's quite interesting, and I think helpful. And
That was my hope.
yeah, it's not much, but it's
Now
what we can do.
I'm sorry, things are frozen again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. I heard you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting a warning here. My internet connection is having trouble. I'm curious how close you come with the volume to existing conditions.
No,
just roughly, in rough terms.
Oh gosh, I don't have the percentages. It's just slightly below the proposed condition without doing it. It's not, it doesn't get there. And we have a very limited area where we can do it because it's the only place where we can get the stormwater there from the roof and have enough grade change because the site's so low and flat. We have an opportunity at that southeast corner of the building.
Understood. So I do see that as an area of concern here that, not being able to meet, under our local bylaw, the volumetric requirement. I appreciate you trying to do some mitigation work. I think I suggested last time, we're looking at, it's one of those situations where you look at it and you say, I know it's going to be better than the numbers, show because we're forced to use this TR55 method. Doesn't capture everything. If your engineer could put a letter together saying that it's mitigated, we've accepted that in the past. It sounded like that may not be strictly possible, and I understand that. His professional judgment. If he doesn't think it's going to fully mitigate it, he can't say that. Another suggestion that I think Carl made, and I had some interest in, was re-examining the large expanse of lawn out front. I understand that was not received favorably. I'm told there was some talk of that with the Open Space Commission as well. They had another suggestion that rather than allowing it to revegetate as forest, as had been discussed quickly at our last meeting, potentially even something along the lines of wildflower meadow / pollinator garden, something like that. But just, right up the road, we have another large project that was constrained by a flat site with high groundwater, and it made it so that they couldn't meet the Wetlands Protection Act, and we turned them down. We have another site here we're looking at that's very flat with high groundwater. It's not quite meeting our local regs. I want to be on firm footing with the mitigation that offsets that. So I just wanted to get that out there once again, and I'm hoping that you can revisit the issue of providing some sort of mitigation that the commission can hang its hat on, so we have a defensible decision ultimately. I hope it wasn't all garbled. My internet connection is.
No, I understood you loud and clear. It's the situation though is we're really boxed in by this groundwater and the regulatory equation, as you point out, for the infiltration. We know infiltration is going to happen there. We know during periods of the year. I think maybe the detail that could be added to it is saying during portions of the year when the groundwater is down below during the storm events during that period of the year, we know we're going to have some vertical infiltration, but we know we'll have horizontal infiltration. You can't get there.
I just want to bring that up.
You can't get there on a regulatory equation or requirement.
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, there's a waiver will be sought. So typically, on occasions where we grant a waiver, it's because there's some form of mitigation. I just wanted to bring this up quickly tonight so that it didn't surprise you at our next meeting. When I bring it up there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this is something that can be revisited. I'm only one commissioner in my mind. I think there are a couple of opportunities here for mitigation that would certainly satisfy me in looking at a waiver. And again, I know you're on a tight schedule. I don't want to surprise you with anything later on. I wanted to make sure that everything is sort of out on the table this evening.
Thank you. And then the other item was the wildflowers, but as you may have heard, there's actually Freddie was out there today, and we believe we come to a general understanding on the solution for the replacement of what's lost out there. Should the building be built where the wildflowers, where the attempt was made on the wildflowers originally? And we do think that the wider, longer area along the east and down towards the south on the east side will have a much better, greater chance being successful because of the moisture there, and we can go with a more wet, loving native plantings of wildflowers and native plants in that area, which leads to another issue with it makes sense for us to request the waiver that we go into the 20-foot in some areas, which are now currently maintained as a regular lawn, and we go in there and we take that out and we seed that. This is in the areas immediately along the edge, so that we have a better chance and better for success and a better integration into the natural systems out there. Our plan shows that now. The new revised plan that's going to be reviewed by the peer consultants shows that, and it has some excess. We need to replace 33,500 square feet, and we're in the vicinity of approaching 38,000. So it's somewhere between 37.5 and 33.5 is what we're looking at right now. And we did look into the trees issue, this foresting issue, and can't find any real sort of background that would say that planting of a lot of trees in that area would lower the ground table enough, especially in a regional watershed like this that comes down through the site. But since a lot of the area around it already is there's a lot of forested areas already, and we have what we have now. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I may not have been clear. I wasn't suggesting that.
No, I know you weren't. I just thought I had to address that because it was brought up at a meeting before.
Okay, understood.
We did look into it. I didn't want to. I don't want anyone to think we're sweeping things under the rug.
Okay.
We're late on some stuff, but we're not sweeping it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Are you looking for a motion to continue?
I was.
Wait, Mark, do you want to ask the public first? Sorry to be the bearer.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. Is there anybody? Is there any public in the audience, the attendees, that would like to speak with respect to this application? If there is, use the raise hand function, and Melissa will let you in.
I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay. Now I'm looking for a motion to continue.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, so Russ, are you a second?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasmano.
Yes. And it's November 18th.
Yes.
For a reason I don't get to vote today?
Oh my God, did I not put you in the thing? Jeff, Pete.
Yes, and to the previous ones too.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. My
But maybe
teacher
it had
was wrong
something to do
today.
But maybe it had something to do with that the other one was like, reinstated from something years ago, and maybe for some reason I was ineligible, but it's pretty sure I should be here.
It's just me. It's just me. I'm sorry. I added you in now.
Nobody else caught it but you.
All right, cool.
We all sat here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on, the continued business. Request for certificate of compliance, 1 Weatherby Lane, DEP number 290-1014.
Yeah, so this is a carryover from the last meeting. I believe Joe actually did this site inspection. So since then I met out with Pat Flynn, who's the supervisor from Brendan Homes, who did the original construction, and we went over kind of some of the items, which was removal of some of the landscaping debris. And then there's one slope that's kind of close to the fence that we kind of went over and determining if maybe putting some jute mesh would be down, but in really looking at it and walking up and down it, in my opinion, it was pretty stabilized. You know, it may not have the best grass growth, but it's definitely had a couple winters that it hasn't eroded. So I think in terms of overall stabilization and what we've been having our threshold for COCs, this did meet that qualification. So I think they're all set at this point.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'm
No.
sorry. Can I ask a question? This is 139 Deerfoot, right? Correct?
No, this is One Weatherby Lane.
Oh, that's why I'm confused. Okay.
Okay.
We're passing over that one tonight. Deerfoot.
Okay, do I hear a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for One Weatherby Lane?
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
See, Jeff, that's when you should jump in second. We'll know you're here.
All right, Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right, did I get everyone? I didn't miss anyone, right?
All right, next is request for certificate of compliance, 30 Presidential Drive, but unless you sent me a note that.
Yeah, so I did talk to the homeowner after our last meeting. This is the one with the pool that kind of put in that small retaining wall type masonry wall. So they are having the new as-built done to incorporate it into some sort of amendment like the commission asked. So that's not quite done yet because they were still working. So obviously they wanted to be completed so they could have a fully encompassed plan. That's about it.
Okay. All right, then we have a request for certificate of compliance, 22A Lovers Lane, DEP number 290-745. That's an old one.
Yeah, I'll let Matt or Joe do this one. I don't see anyone who's here to represent them tonight, so.
Yeah, so I can give an update on that. We went out and took a look. Generally, things looked pretty good. Site was stable. Erosion controls have been removed. There are some erosion controls on the adjacent property, but correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, there's an open order, right? And those erosion controls.
Yeah, we just extended it. And for people who might be familiar with this site for its reputation, this is the foundation that sunk this house.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I know that puts it into better perspective than the address.
So the house size and some of the layout was slightly different than what was approved, but didn't really seem to be really significant. I think the one thing that the as-built is lacking is it really didn't show any topography, and it didn't show there's a retaining wall in the back of the property that sort of establishes the limit of work, and that's really not shown on the as-built. And I think that seems to be a fairly important piece, just so that going forward, the commission knows, really where the current limit of work is. So if somebody in the future wants to or potentially expands out without a permit, we know really what the existing conditions are as of today. So we would recommend a little bit more work on the as-built before this is issued.
This looks like a septic as-built.
It is. So that was one of the things is this septic as-built from 2005, I think. Yeah. So they had a new engineer. My understanding is they had a new engineer go out to do their general site visit to compare against this as-built plan to do the stamped letter, but they didn't actually perform a new as-built plan to kind of the standards like Matt was saying that we look for today.
Is there no driveway?
There is, it's not on here though.
Yeah, this is just a
Approximate
septic
there it is.
as-built.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the driveway. Okay.
Although I think now it has does it have a horseshoe? I can't remember, or it might just go under. So it sounds like the commission wants to maybe not necessarily deny, but request more information in terms of an updated as-built plan showing current site features and infrastructure along with topography.
Yeah, I wouldn't deny it. I would just give them guidance as to,
Mhm.
you know, what we really need.
Okay. Yeah, my understanding is the property finally sold. Someone bought it because a builder kind of did a flip and somehow made the foundation viable without doing additional site work. So,
And through the chair,
Yeah,
sorry, there was one other fairly minor item. We did observe some sort of leftover concrete, crushed stone behind the retaining wall there, probably 3 or 4 small piles. You know, it's an inert material. Ideally wouldn't be there. I don't know if that's something that you would want to see removed prior to issuing an as-built or not. Or certificate of compliance, sorry.
is that in one of the pictures you sent me?
Yes.
Hold on, guys. I think that's them.
And Joe was the one who's out there, so I don't know, Joe, if you want to chime in on any greater detail than what I just provided.
what are we looking at?
These little piles of cement crushed stone that Matt was just talking about.
Then
I know it
that
looks,
like a-
it just looks like a pile of dirt, but
Is that like a shovelful or something?
Yeah, it's not, it's a, you know, a bucket full or so. It's not, there's not a lot of, there's 4 small piles. One of them is definitely, that one there is definitely like set up concrete, but the others are still loose material.
Or maybe that's holding the house up. That looks like it's a rock associated with it. Is that a rock or is that a chunk of concrete?
hey, Rob.
Probably a little bit of both now.
Yeah.
For all the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably should take that out.
Okay.
There's not a lot there.
Just a shovel. That's all it'll take.
Yeah.
Send a Tyler out there with a plastic shovel and a pail and they'll take care of it.
Good luck getting her out. It's a steep wall.
Okay. Moving on, 84 Main Street. There's nothing to discuss there tonight. Next is violation at One Lindbrook.
I am happy to announce that the pile is gone. It was hydroseeded as well. So they did that yesterday. Weather, permitting, some of it was moved to just that triangle portion, which is outside of our jurisdiction. It's not maybe the prettiest thing according to the neighbors, but we don't necessarily have a say over that. But the area that was removed looks great. It's very level. They have wattles surrounding the area, and they put down the New England restoration mix. So all is good, and they did meet their deadline. So we'll kind of keep an eye on it through the fall, and come spring, take a look again to make sure things haven't slipped and slided over there.
Hip hip hooray.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, next up is FY23 budget.
Yes. So very unexciting. It's the same as last year. We made quite a few bigger jumps with our stewardship line item recently. We had gotten advisory approval previously, for that increase, kind of with them understanding that it would slow down over the next couple of years. And given kind of we're in between a couple of possible projects, talking about Halloran access, it may not happen next fiscal year. So I did just leave that kind of even keel at the 30,000 for now until we get a better understanding of what our maintenance costs will be in the future for additional properties. So I don't think it will have any impact on next fiscal year, for being realistic. I think
Do you have any questions, comments?
I guess
Looks pretty straightforward.
think back to the conversations we've had about getting extended help for Melissa. And was there once a discussion that suggested that we should put the cost of a full-time admin or assistant for Melissa into the budget, because then it keeps it on the radar and it allows us to continue to request that support?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the
Budget,
wording was.
we get someone to, even if we get agreement that we in principle to have support for Melissa, we'll never get that support because of the funding for it.
Judith, are you suggesting we ask for it every year and they might change back? Yeah, I think that's a good play. Yeah.
That would
Can't hurt
be
to ask.
my, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was at one point, I don't know whether it was when we went to advisory or or a conversation we had with Sam Stires. I don't know. I just have this memory that the recommendation was keep it on your plans, keep it in your budget, keep it on the radar.
Looks like Sam's here.
If you do that, Melissa,
Remember that
what's
as
the
well.
percentage it bumps your budget up? Ballpark,
Well, it'd be most likely another 19-hour person. I can see, I probably have, when we last did it, what that looked like.
Because that'll be what, when we go to town meeting, most people, they just look at the big percentage jumps. So if that's a huge percentage jump, they're going to flag us.
Yeah.
And all of us are going to have to get up and say why,
Right.
Yeah.
Which we did before.
Yeah,
Ben did.
I think we should do it every year. Maybe go back to the select board and say, we're here again. I'd be happy to do it on your behalf. I think it's very important for you to have staff.
How much was in there before? 19 hours at what?
That's what I was trying to open up. Grade C. Of course, I don't think we put in the number, but I can look that up in the personnel bylaw real quick on what that would look like. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to go, oh no, I'm not even sharing. I have too many screens open. Okay.
Also, out of curiosity, where are we in terms of spending for the current year?
I can definitely get you guys report for our next meeting, and then that will have us up until the end of October. I should have that report, if that makes sense. One I have now, our dues are paid. Let me see. So that line item is done. We used, I think, 500 from the employee training for my CESP certification. And then I think we've got about 12,000 we've used for stewardship, but I will double check that and get the report to you guys for next meeting.
Sometimes people look at what you've spent and deciding whether to give it to you again. And I wasn't sure if we'd spent that 30K or 24, or whatever it was this year.
our budget is sometimes tricky because we have a rush in the spring. So sometimes, the end of summer, it might be a big field mow and that's pretty much it. It's not until the spring and early summer do we really start getting that larger money coming out. So sometimes it's not very indicative this time of year.
While you're looking for that, I have to drop for a second.
Okay.
To let the dog out. I'll be right back.
3 to 3.
Sam just commented 19-hour person might increase budget by 25%. Substantial percent, but not huge $ increase.
So 38,957. Oh Lord. It would, yeah, it would increase our overall budget by about 37%. Depending on the salary we pay.
It would add value though, and that's what we could argue. It's not just money to do stuff. It's money that's going to bring back value to the town and to the residents and to us, and definitely to Melissa. I mean, think about how fast we could process stuff if we had more help.
Yeah, it's about 20 to 30% depending on what the pay rate is for that grade that we had picked out.
Melissa, when do you have to finalize the budget?
November 7th or 8th, I believe. So it's soon. It came up soon.
And do they have plans yet already of when you're going to go in front of the select board yet, or has that not been established?
I am meeting just with the finance director and the town administrator. Where did it go? Oh, budget due is November 12th. So it's the week before our next meeting. So that's why we need to get it kind of semi thought about now. And then I'm meeting with in-house with staff on November 30th. And then I think they start going to the selectmen.
Well, when they do that, please let us know because I will
Absolutely.
attend. I can, yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we want to put in a 19-hour person. I can work out what the specific details would be for that salary and putting it into this budget with the finance director.
Refresh my memory. Did we have that in the last go round?
I don't know if we put it in our budget, but we added a memo for the last budget because the COVID budget was we knew from the get-go there was nothing, it just wasn't anything. So instead of putting it in the budget, we submitted a memo to the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee or Advisory Committee, stating that the situation still exists. We are still looking for part-time help. We understand, that it will not happen this year, but going forward, it is still going to be a need. And I outlined the hours and actions that could be better utilized with administrative help.
If we put it in the budget and gets approved, then we have it. I mean, that would be the bottom line, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I can definitely work out what those numbers are going to be, and before I now my internet's unstable.
We couldn't really hear that last little bit. But.
Oh, that's awesome. What was I saying? Oh, I will put the 19 hours in, and then before I submit it, final submission, I'll send it out to the commission so they can see the final numbers. All right, so are we good with
Okay.
that moving forward?
Yes? Okay. I'm going to skip over number 7 for the time being, and move on to other business properly before the commission. Update on open and active sites.
Pretty much we did really well in the nor'easter this week. You know, I still have the general concerns on Middle Road in terms of that house that's right on the 20-foot with the steep drop off where the trolley line is. You know, when I go by there, it looks like some of the landscaped areas and the planting beds kind of is being held up by the silt fence. So my concern is when it gets removed that slope will erode. I've tried reaching out to the builder a few times and I haven't gotten any response because I also was asking about 61 Breakneck that's not closed out. I know it's on Peter's radar, at least the Breakneck one, because he wanted to get that closed out as well before winter. But I noticed they were kind of out front this week doing some additional work, and I'm not quite sure what it is. But that's kind of really the only outstanding issue that I have with sites, just kind of final stabilization for winter.
They never finished grading the front yard.
So they're just doing it
Did it-
now.
Did a quick seeding to get past Board of Health and put the blinders on.
So they're grading it now?
Well, they ripped out the weeds and then they took the machine out.
I mean, grass isn't going to grow now.
Be pretty tough. Winter rye.
Is it stabilized?
It was for the most part, and then yeah, they
It
ripped
was.
it up. Yeah. I was
Not
also
now.
Take
just
an
trying,
excavator through it and, you know,
yeah,
things happen.
and I didn't see any new erosion controls out along the street.
Nah. Why?
Is that house sold and homeowners living in it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, yes. Since like May or something.
Yeah.
Sounds like they need to get a note.
They've gotten a note. Well, not the new homeowner. No, the new homeowners would too with the new homeowner letter, because if there's recent site-specific ones, then I throw in something extra that they've had something recent. They need to be aware of their conditions. And sometimes
So they've been put on notice.
if they open the mail, there's no guarantee that everyone opens it, but yeah, they should at least know that they have a stormwater permit.
And if it's not stabilized, they're going to have to get some stabilization measures out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will try again tomorrow to reach out to the builder kind of with a more strongly worded narrative. You know, usually at least if I copy Peter on something, it gets a little bit more traction. So I'll be sure to do that too.
And on Middle Road, has that house been purchased? They haven't come in for a certificate of compliance.
They have not, and I'm trying to think if I've seen it in the new homeowner letters. It may have been. It does look like the home is finished, but I haven't seen anyone specifically when I've been out there. I can definitely check the registry tomorrow to see if it's been sold.
Okay, any other updates?
Not on sites. Nope.
Okay. See, task 1 and 2, Breakneck Hill dump.
I am very happy to report that we are working on the draft solid waste assessment plan. So it appears as if we will not be entering an administrative consent order with DEP. So that's a plus. All they have asked so far is just to review our draft plan so that we can incorporate comments. So Taylor at TRC stated that he should have that to me, I think by the end of this week, if not very early next week. So we'll be seeing that for the next meeting and kind of going through what that would entail. And I think some, at least upfront costs in terms of some clearing and permitting aspects of it, but mostly just the work plan of how they would be assessing the site and then the removal in the future. So we made some good leeway, happy with the section chief, James McQuaid's response. So I think this is going to be favorable for us and moving forward a little bit timelier, at least, and with not as much penalties, possibly.
Okay. Any discussion on that? No? Okay. Any updates on meeting in person versus via remote access like this?
I haven't had any updates. I believe the Board of Selectmen mandate, or process that was last, the 6 feet apart, masked, et cetera, is still in place. So I think for now, meeting in virtual is easier if the commission is willing to do that. I know just with even the amount of applicants that Ken's has, it would be very difficult to stagger ourselves in the hearing room.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I was bringing it up with respect to the number 7 here, the SMP bylaw regulation updates and discussion. I just find it's easier to have sort of a working meeting when you're all in person versus remote like this. It's just difficult. So for that topic, where are we with this? Where are we taking this?
For the bylaw?
Yeah, for the regulation updates and discussion.
So I think the last time we left off, we still had my proposed draft outline with some of the additions that we adapted from kind of different towns to encompass two aspects of a stormwater permit, kind of a phased approach in sense of under an acre can just go through the office, with a simple narrative and sketch plan. Anything above an acre kind of goes through the formal process. Obviously that threshold can change. We were updating the rainfall amounts and also including so that the A&R lots are not excluded from the applicability section. So I think that's kind of where we stand in determining if there's anything additional, if the thresholds that we've kind of outlined are acceptable to the commission and the public. I think weighing the pros and cons of how many applications we might get if we reduce it to a half acre is something to consider. In thinking about it, possibly 3/4 of an acre, having the formal permit in front of us might make more sense for Southborough because that half acre, our thought process was trying to exempt the properties that are an acre that, when they disturb half their lot, which is only a half acre, they don't necessarily need as much and maybe shouldn't always be in front of us. So if we still want to think about that logic, then maybe that midway point of 3/4 of an acre might be more sufficient for a formal application. And I think that's kind of where we left off.
So that's effectively moving the trigger threshold from being 50% of a 1 acre lot to being 75% of a 1 acre lot.
Yeah, or just having a flat number, for across the board for properties. So instead of having a percentage in general, we're just saying this X amount of square feet is just a clear cutoff. So now we're not having that 50% or 1 acre, whichever is less.
So what if you have a 5 acre lot?
Then it's the 1/4 acre, whatever we decide. Period. Once you disturb that 1/4 acre, then you file.
You keep saying 1/4 acre.
I'm sorry, 3/4 of an acre or half acre,
Oh.
whatever our upper threshold is.
Yeah. Can I just
Now,
add
if you have a 5-acre lot, it's 50%.
No,
No,
so we
over an
would be
acre.
getting rid of the 50%.
I
It's just
understand,
one number.
but
Yeah.
today's bylaw is if you have a 5-acre lot, you don't trigger it unless you're at 50% threshold.
No, 1
No,
acre.
if you go over an acre, it's over an acre or 50%.
Whichever is less.
And Melissa, can I just jump in for a moment?
So why don't we just remove the 50%?
And just have 1 acre.
What? Could you say that again, Mark? I didn't understand that.
I said, why don't we just remove the 50%?
Essentially, I think-
Just leave it at 1 acre.
You're right. Essentially, we just want to get rid of the 50%. We're just discussing whether it should be an acre, a half acre, or 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what we're doing.
I think it simplifies it.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the things I wanted to jump in, if you don't mind. Just
No, I don't
to say,
mind.
Is that the intent here was to make it, to simplify it and to make it more fair, because we thought that some of the smaller lots, 50% was kind of a crazy thing to do, right? You can edit that out if you want.
Well, it's a lot of burden for a small lot.
Yeah, right. It's a big hurdle for a small lot. You're absolutely correct. The thing that I'm a little uncomfortable with was simplifying it, but we're also making it more complicated with this requirement that if it's between another range, something else happens, right? And we should be, we're just making it more complicated, which is not something I want to do, is to make it more complicated. And if we're really that uncomfortable with an acre, and then we need to review, say, between a half an acre and an acre, whatever we come out with, that there's a whole different process, and we have to go through, Melissa and all that. It just makes it more complicated. And that maybe the thing we want to do is bring down the threshold. Now, I've been back and forth in my own mind about what to do about this, right? But I'm just a little concerned about this added complication we're going to put in, another kind of step that has to be, I want to make it as simple as possible.
And the step you're referring to is whether or not Melissa can deal with it administratively in her office, or
Right.
whether that comes in front of us.
Yeah, right. And also, if Melissa's dealing with it, where do we come in? If Melissa can't get anywhere with this, I mean, the enforcement part, can we, where does the commission come in to support Melissa, and how is that described in the bylaw? Right? We should be able to step in, and if somebody just ignores her, what can we do to support her? Right? I think that should be in the bylaw.
Oh, we would never ignore her.
No, not we. No, not we ignore her. The developer ignores her. They says, "Oh, go away." You have no, you don't, there's no teeth in this. Yeah.
So, in my mind, when I think about this, is if the threshold is an acre, that simplifies a lot of the applications, because most house lots in town are, older ones are half acres and, fables and so on and so forth. But, new house lots that are getting built are an acre or more, right? So if they're acres, if they're acre lots, then, they don't trigger stormwater. I mean, I think that makes it simpler than 3/4 or a half, or,
I mean, are we comfortable with anybody who has a 1 acre lot clearing the whole thing without a permit, or we don't think that that's impactful?
Well, so I look at my lot, right? It's an acre, right? And if I want to tear up all my lawn, replant it, I got to go pull a stormwater permit. And, I'm not going to change any elevations or anything. I'm just going to till my lawn up. I'm going to disturb more than 50% of it. And I have to do stormwater because of that. I just think that's really a huge unfair burden. If I wasn't going to redo my lawn, nothing would change. I wouldn't have to go deal with any stormwater issues. But because I decided I want to plant grass that grows and looks greener, I've got to do that.
But I guess the question I would have in relation to that example is, what's stopping you then doing other stuff? So you're only going to you've given an example where all you're going to do is rip the lawn up and tear it, put it away. But what about and replace it? What about the example of someone who has, 0.9 of an acre and is actually under the old regulations would have, triggered at 50%, and they're doing something quite dramatic that does affect surface runoff, and we would never know, or we would never have any jurisdiction over it. I mean, that's where I actually like what was proposed about, change the threshold, and whether it's half an acre or 3/4 or 1, whatever we decide. But for that lower tier where there is ground disturbance, land disturbance, and I think we've changed it from soil disturbance to land disturbance, at least we have visibility without lots of cost for the homeowner or the property owner. We have visibility of what they're doing, and we can actually say, well, you know what, this is going to have a material impact. Because otherwise, to me, it feels that we've raised the limit and we're going, well, we don't really care what you do to your property if it's less than an acre.
Well, I think that your point about, it has a little cost to them is wrong. I think it has a lot of cost to them. And I think it's a big burden to the average homeowner, right? If they're going to, increase their driveway, impervious to the driveway or something like that, and maybe, whatever they're going to do, they've got to get engineering involved. They got to do stormwater calculations. They've got to prepare all that information and apply for a permit from us. And it's costly.
But that's where, unless I've misunderstood the text, that's where Melissa's suggestion is they work with her on, they explain what they're doing and they do a small sketch, and she takes a view as to whether or not this is really going to have a big impact on that property. And if it isn't, that's okay, but at least we have visibility of it, we have a record of it. And if it does, we say, you know what, you're going to have to get a stormwater permit by virtue of the fact of the work that's being done, not just, a somewhat arbitrary, well, it's more than an acre or more than 50%.
Yeah, but this discussion we were having was, do we set it at a half acre, 3/4 acre? And I mentioned acre.
Right.
Right. So,
But what happens to the
half and 3/4?
But if we're losing the 50%, which is what I thought we discussed prior to the conversation about half an acre, 3/4 of an acre, then we lose visibility, don't we, of anything that happens under an acre.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so I think I was the one who opened this can of worms with the different thresholds, and Judith has kind of captured my thinking on it too. Over what we have just been talking about with a 1 acre threshold, over an acre, you're hiring a surveyor and an engineer and the filing fees and so forth. And we're talking about thousands of dollars. My idea was at some lower threshold, whether it's above a 1/4 acre but less than an acre, just as an example, that my suggestion was it's something like the NIPD's categorical permit, where the permit is automatically issued. You have the right to do this work, but there are requirements when you do the work. If you're within those bounds, you don't have to hire an engineer or a surveyor, but you are required to have erosion controls at the downhill edge of any displacement, stockpiles, encircled with silt fence, so forth. And if some notice was filed just administratively to Melissa with a short narrative and a hand sketch, I think that would be great too. Give us a little bit of oversight, but it would really it is a little bit more complexity on the one hand, but it's easier than what we're doing now. And I think it's a lot less burdensome than what we're doing right now. And then the one last thing that I'd like to throw out there is we just have to make sure that we are not running afoul of our obligations as an MS4 under NIPD's. That was why stormwater was adopted in the first place. Stormwater management bylaw was adopted in the first place. We just have to make sure that we're still meeting our obligations under NIPD's.
Yeah, and for those concerned about kind of the 2-phase approach, so think what Judith was getting to is the right way to think about it. So typically, these would be properties that I see that come through as a building permit, and, as part of my comment and approval process, if it meets that kind of in-between threshold that we set for this, it's just a simple description and ensuring that, things like tracking dirt onto the roadway, it's capturing those smaller issues that we would love to be able to enforce, but don't have the jurisdiction for. And by putting it in here, we then get that jurisdiction to say, you need to sweep up the road, or you need to put in, some sort of erosion control because your front lawn is sliding into the front sliding into the roadway. And by having it in this applicability, it automatically does give us the enforcement action that if something isn't going to plan, or if they're not following the approvals, then we can take that enforcement action, however we deem fit, whether it's just myself or if it's the commission as a whole. Even though you don't have a formal application in front of you, they still meets that applicability threshold, so they still will have to follow the bylaw. Not to the T, but still following, making sure that it doesn't impact as it should.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'm trying to summarize in my own mind how this might work. From Melissa's description, it's sounding to me like we would have something like a standard set of conditions that would apply. We would settle on a standard set of conditions that would apply to all these smaller lots that would be enforceable by us, so we wouldn't surprise anybody. Right? That would be enforceable by us, so we would notify them that if they fall in this range, they'd have to let us know they're going to do this. We would give them that standard set of conditions, and they would follow those. And if they don't, then they would have to report to the committee. That's where I'm getting to. Then they would have to come to us for violation or what. Then we step in, right? Is that how that would work?
That's absolutely one way it can work, and probably the easiest way it would work. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So I would think that if we were going to have, something where, they come to the administrative office and they're seeking a automatic stormwater permit, as Ben sort of described it, we would have to have a set of consistent, call it a recipe, of what they would be issued. And it would be consistent for any of those applications that would come in front of us, right? It would have to be, there may be the opportunity to waive a particular item because it doesn't apply, but there'd have to be that consistency associated with it, I think.
Yeah.
Correct.
Couldn't have any sort of gray areas.
Yeah.
And some clear language, if you discharge sediment across a property line or something like that, then, you're in violation of the permit.
Yeah,
And that
if
would
you're grading of your property, when you're done doing whatever modification you have, now puts all the water in your next door neighbor.
Yep, and that would be automatically, with my sign off on the building permit, uploaded as part of the attachments in the building permit application.
Excuse me,
approval.
so there's a lot of noise downstairs. I'm gonna get downstairs and check on it.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and also Paul's saying about, we're trying to make this simpler for people and not more complicated. So, in my past life, one of the things that I've done in these situations is actually flowchart it out so that people can actually see, I'm here, this is my property, and which track do I go on, and what does it mean if I go on the simple or I go on the more complicated. And I'm happy to work with Melissa on a kind of, visual example of how that would be. And maybe we can test that out with some, innocent homeowners who know nothing about this and see what they say. Like, oh yeah, I get this. We could try it out on, and maybe on a couple of our, development partners as well, and see, or Peter Bemis or someone like that, and see if people can kind of understand it. Because obviously there's the bylaw, which is the statute, which frankly I find all of those bylaws incredibly difficult to read just because of the, you know, the language that's used. But I think if we could, you know, if we can kind of map it out, and I think when we come to then present at town meeting or however we'll end up doing it, that's probably something that if we can say, well, you know, we've got this example for you and people have understood it, then I think that's kind of more power, more grist to the mill, so to speak. So I'm happy to, once I'm back next week, I'm happy to do that with Melissa.
All right.
Okay, here's something interesting. All the noise downstairs was a mouse just ran across the floor in front of my wife.
Oh, there you go. Where'd it go?
I don't know, but we'll find him later.
Do you listen? Oh, you know.
Mouse in the house.
Yeah. Oh, not the first one. Yeah.
Just don't give it any cookies.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa, I don't know if you want to you know, jot down kind of what we discussed here.
Yep.
So that we can kind of read it in our leisure and think about it, noodle on it.
Yep.
That's something you can take an action on.
Can I just want to throw one last thing in there. You listed out what we've spoken about so far, Melissa. I mentioned it really quickly at a previous meeting, but
The survey.
NAVD 1988 vertical data. Okay,
I got that.
great.
I didn't think anyone would be so technical as to remember, except you, but.
All right, we're at the end of the agenda, except for the documentation for 163 Parkerville Road.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So I'm going to have to recuse myself for that. So if there isn't any other business that I need to be a part of, I'll let Ben take the reins and deal with that.
Sounds
I don't
good.
have anything after Parkerville.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Hey, Mark.
Bye all.
Right.
All right. For the determination of applicability, the only condition that I kind of carried over was just erosion control shall be installed. Like Ben said, the wetland is across the street, the road is crowned. Yep. Carl?
And the plan to be updated.
It's not just installed, that they be trenched and,
Yes.
you know, because it's not.
Inspected.
Yeah, and then the entrance would be refreshed if it became clogged. That was the only two.
Yeah, do you want to list them on both the determination and the stormwater permit, or just? Because this, I was just talking about the.
That's more of a stormwater. Other folks talk, that's more of a stormwater thing, right?
Yeah, so for the determination of applicability, all I had was our standard about installation and approval of erosion controls.
Okay.
And then for the stormwater permit, we had the 12-inch compost log, the cleaning out of the construction entrance as necessary, and for a new plan that shows our extra conditions to be submitted as well.
Just that the compost log is entrenched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So first thing, the RDA
So-
would be looking. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
got a second?
Yeah, of course.
The compost log, I don't see that getting entrenched. I just don't see.
Yeah,
Those
it's
guys
almost.
blow it in. It's like a bark blower. And it's got nothing to do with the contractor. The guy's not on site when it happens. I just don't see this flying, if you will. In
Yeah, they have
reality.
to. I mean, they have to scrape in a furrow before they start blowing it in, because the risk is what you were there on Route 9. It was you, me, and Beth, I think, walking on Route 9 where the compost sock was. It was bridging spans of 3 or 4 feet with like an 8-inch gap underneath it. When they were doing the work on Route 9, it was
Right,
in front of
right.
Ken's, I think.
And I'll agree with that. It's where it's sitting on forest mat. It's just, I don't see the reality of it happening. I agree that that's a failure in the design, or in the, not the design, but the application, the installation, the one that we saw on Route 9, and that shouldn't be accepted.
Hey, Russ, not to beat this, but you have more practical experience on this than I do. But from what I understand, the compost socks are very heavy and don't require.
Wicked heavy.
Yeah,
Wicked
and
heavy.
it's the straw and hay wattles that need to be entrenched in order to be effective, right? Is that correct? I think that's, and silt fences too. Right?
Yeah, through the chair.
Go ahead.
Please.
I can speak to this a little bit. I mean, in my experience, silt fence always has to be entrenched or it's completely pointless.
Yeah.
The mulch tubes are generally heavy enough where you get good contact with the ground, unless the ground is extremely uneven, as you described on the Route 9 project. And that's really just an installer installing it properly and understanding what the site conditions are. Wattle, similarly, entrenching isn't really necessary. I mean, the mulch tubes often don't need to be staked because they are so heavy, or at least staked less often. The wattles, because they are more lightweight, need to be staked more often. But in my opinion, neither really needs to be entrenched because all you're doing is taking away the height of the barrier and a higher likelihood of it being breached.
Fair enough. Everyone's okay with that, then?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
absolutely. So then we'd be looking for a motion for a negative determination of applicability, conditioned as discussed.
So moved.
Again,
Second.
All right, Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes.
Yes.
And the
Okay,
stormwater.
next up, is there a motion to issue a stormwater management permit, conditioned as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Okay,
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it. I forgot you, Jeff. It's been a week, guys. I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right. So we've got one last motion that we need. Who wants to do the honors?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
and that's it because Mark's gone.
Oh, very
All right.
cute. Very
Happy
cute.
Halloween, everyone.
Happy
Ah,
Halloween.
Our costumes.
And congratulations, Matt. This is your last time with us.
That's right.
Thank
Good
you
luck,
very
You
much.
will
Matt.
be missed.
Thank you.
I know where to
It's
find you.
been,
I'm sorry.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep.
And yeah, I've told Melissa, just because I'm not in front of you guys, if she needs to reach out with a question and I can lend whatever expertise I have offline, I'm always happy to do that.
Thank you
And
very
you
much.
guys are always welcome to come visit me up at the farm.
Yeah,
Thank you, Matt.
I've been
Exciting. I
there.
highly recommend.
Yeah, we went one time, visited them.
Yep.
Got to pat all the animals, so it was nice.
Oh.
All right. Well, Joe, good luck with us. We're happy to have you.
You still need it?
Yeah.